All right, I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Camarillo City Council for Wednesday, December 13, 2023. Could we have a roll call first, please, Carrie?
Councilmember Santangelo.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez Bravo.
Here.
Councilmember Tennyson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kildee.
Here.
And Mayor Tremblay.
Here. Ms. Richmond, can you provide us the information indicating why we're going into closed session?
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have two items listed on the agenda. One under Government Code Section 54956.9D2, one matter related to letters sent by Manat on behalf of their client Nui on the city's triennial review. And the second item is existing litigation pursuant to 54956.9D1. It's the OPV Coalition, and if there's any reportable action, I will make that report later this evening.
Great, thanks very much. Record will indicate we'll go into recess for closed session, and we will reconvene in open session at 5 p.m. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District. Let the record reflect that all council members, or all directors are present. Is there any changes? Are there any changes to the agenda? Oh, we need to do the flag salute, sorry. Mr. Kildee, will you lead us? Thank you. All right, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, that brings us to the consent calendar. Oh, are there any public comments for the Camarillo Sanitary District? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes, I can't see, unanimously. All right, are there any board comments? Okay, with that, we will adjourn this meeting.
All right, I'll call this meeting to order of the successor agency. Let the record reflect that all members are here. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, are there any general public comments for the successor agency? Hearing none, let's go to consent. Do I hear a motion relative to consent?
I'll move the approval of consent.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the consent calendar. Please vote. And that's adopted 5-0. Any staff comments? Any members of the board have any comments relative to the successor agency? All right, hearing none, we'll adjourn this meeting of the successor agency, and we will reconvene the Camarillo City Council. Let the record reflect that all council members are present this evening. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, our first up is a presentation, and we really welcome aboard. Thank you very much, the Friends of the Library, for the presentation of their annual donation to the city. And what a pleasure it is to have you aboard. Sure, or do you have comments to make, or presentation to make first? We can do it from up there. That's great. Okay, we'll do it from up there. There's a mic. Is that working? It is. All right, I'd like to introduce to you Kay Ito Wolverton. Wolvertonito. Sorry, I was close. I was dyslexic tonight. I'm president of the board. Please share with us.
Thank you. I don't like to stand up and say much, but I'm just very gratified that the Friends of the Library has been able to present, as we do for every year, for many, many years, that way predates me, the fruits of our labor. And some of it is donations, but the vast majority is funds that we take in from our used bookstore. So we have a group of folks here, some of them from the board, some of them very dedicated volunteers in our bookstore. I've been on the board just a few years. This is my second year as president. And we're just very gratified that we have a wonderful relationship. It's a great partnership between, or among rather, the board and the volunteers of Friends, the city, and these wonderful folks sitting over there. Wave. These are, this is Mandy Nazar, our library director, and her leadership team, and they do a fantastic job spending the money that we raise. And we've just been so happy with the programming and resources that these funds provide.
Just a few words. The people that you see in front of you, and then also our professional library staff, devote hours and hours and hours of time to this function. And as a member of the as a resident in the city, I get to stop by often and buy books at the bookstore. I can't say enough about how impressed I have always been by their dedication, and I want to thank you very sincerely for everything that you do for our city. The monies that are to be used on this go for books, library programming, equipment, materials. Without the Friends of the Library, there will be a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to do. So I really want to thank you for everything that you do. I just wonder, are there any other members of the board who'd like to make any comments? You bet.
I just want to remind everybody that we're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4, and we have lots of fabulous Christmas gifts. You need last-minute Christmas gifts? Please come see us.
And why don't you remind everybody of the website, so people know the website. friendsofthecamarillo-library.org.
There you go.
Right? I'm sorry.
Camarillo Library Friends.org. Thanks for putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry. But if you haven't had a chance to go look at the website, please go look at the website. Everything that the Friends do.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
so much.
I was going to say, Jolene did not introduce herself, but she is our volunteer coordinator, and she has a huge job wrangling all these folks here.
Okay, why don't we have everybody just introduce themselves
Yes,
briefly?
yes, the fellow who jumped over the thing.
Thank you. The parking was incredible outside. Jay Clancy, and I've been a board member about a year, and happy to be a part of it.
And I'm Jolene Warren. I'm the volunteer coordinator.
John Anderson. I shelve books and quite a few other things around the bookstore.
I'm Mary Yee, and I've been a volunteer for, I'd say, over 30 years. So I enjoy my work, meeting the people, doing everything in the bookstore. I do. So, here we go.
Hi, I'm Joanne Isaacson. I shelve nonfiction mostly on Tuesday mornings, and I'm a member of the Bookstore Oversight Committee.
And I'm Yola Chalker, and I've been volunteering since 2016 when I moved down here to be close to my daughter, who insisted when I moved here that I must work at the bookstore. This is my daughter, Jolene. And I enjoy it. I work at the cash register up front, and I love greeting the children that come in to get their books. It's just fantastic to see them with their smiles and their books.
Thank you. I'm Anne Uroff. I'm new on the board, corresponding secretary, and I've also worked in the back and in the front. So,
Thank you again very, very much. And I guess it's time that we do, we get the check, which looks like it's a little bit too big to put on an ATM machine, but we're going to.
Pictures from the library social media. It's this person here.
Are you ready?
Does a fantastic job.
1, 2, 3, cheese. We'll do one more. 1, 2, 3, cheese.
Would you join me in a round of applause? Would any members of the council like to speak? Mr. Kildee.
Wait, can you sit down?
Yeah, what's it?
Oh, whatever, yeah.
Not because Kevin's going to speak.
No, that's okay. I want to thank those of you out that are watching this and in the audience. The Friends of the Library have literally raised millions of dollars over time. And I can vividly remember when we were building the library and trying to design that. And one of the criteria at that time was we wanted to make sure that the Friends of the Library had a really nice place in the library, and that was accessible and visible. That was a really, really important, concept that we had. And I think it's so great that over all these years that it's been so successful, and it's because of people like you. And it's also because of the people that were on it that have cycled off for, various reasons. But it's one of the more successful, if not the most successful endeavor that the city has done on that. And the goodwill that you do in the community cannot be understated. And I just want to thank all of you for taking time out of your schedule and volunteering for this. They're not paid. They don't make a dime. And look what they've given us tonight. And every year they've given us money. And it is an incredible situation that I find myself as a council member. And I'm incredibly impressed with all of you. And I'm humble. And if you can go and support them, do it. It's just wonderful. And how you've set it up and how consumer friendly it is. It's not just a bunch of books that's stacked up. The presentation is amazing. So again, I want to thank you for what you do and carry on the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Keeley. We're not done yet. Ms. Santangelo.
I just wanted to thank you all and everybody that you work with for all of your volunteer hours, your time and effort. We are definitely the benefactors of that. I was telling the mayor that one of the coolest things about when we switch mayor is that one of the first things that happens is we get to accept this check. And that's amazing. So year after year, you come through for us, and the community benefits for it. Thank you so much.
Martita?
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and your love and your volunteer work. Our family is directly impacted by your volunteer work. My children, I have 3 kids, and they love going to the library, and one of their favorite things is going into the little store, getting their books. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart on behalf of our family and the entire city.
And I want to just also give a real shout out to our professional library staff. They are exemplary. And if you haven't had a chance to go to the library lately, go. It rocks because of them and because of the friends. I agree with you. We don't even need, we'll stipulate to that. Thank you again. Thank you. There's no question about it.
No competition.
Yes, it does. Thank you all. Good night.
That was nice. Good job.
What Councilmember Santangelo was saying was really true. One of the first things you do as mayor is accept a check from the Friends of the Camarillo Library, and it's astonishing and wonderful how much money they have raised on all of our behalves for all of these years. So we thank them again very, very sincerely. And feel free to stick around because we have a really interesting agenda tonight, but I know if you have to. I say that to everybody, it's okay. I say that to everybody. All right, we're going to move on to comments from council, council and staff comments and reports. Who wants to start? Councilmember Martinez-Bravo?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. For my communications, let's see, November 9th, I attended the grand opening of the Camarillo Learning Center at the DeSalter. November 9th, I also attended the Airport Authorities meeting. November 13th, I attended the Site Authority meeting at CSUCI. November 15th, I attended the Utilities Committee. November 16th, I attended the Economic Development Collaborative meeting. November 17th, I attended a tour of the Courtyard. So it was really great to see and to experience that, and I'm very, very thankful for all of our folks who work out there. November 27th, I attended the Transportation and Infrastructure meeting. November 27th, I provided a tour to now Colonel May. She is from the U.S. Air Force, and she was interested possibly in the future in becoming a council person. So I provided her a tour here of the city. On December 6th, I attended the council reorganization meeting. December 9th, I attended the Christmas parade with PVR PD. And on December 9th, I attended the City of Camarillo Employment Recognition Dinner. And thank you again to all our wonderful staff who helped run the city. December 12th, I attended a meeting with Interface Children and Family Services. They run 211 and do a wonderful job serving our community. And I also just wanted to take this time to thank our firefighters and our first responders who responded to the fire that we had over the weekend. I was in line, ready to start the parade. Chief Tennyson was right in front of me, and I know he was already on call, getting calls to attend to that. So thank you so much for that.
Who wants to go next? Councilmember Santangelo.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, on November 9th, I attended the Airport Authority meeting. On November 15th, I attended the LAFCO meeting. On November 16th, Clean Power Alliance. November 28th, Policy Committee. And also November 28th, CPA Finance Committee. December 6th, I attended the Council Reorganization. December 7th, CPA Board of Directors. I'm going out of order here. Back on November 9th, I was also at the DeSalto Learning Center opening. On November 11th, I was at the Miracle League of 805 field dedication. On December 7th, I was at the annual tourism lunch provided by Visit Camarillo, and later that evening at the annual Hanukkah celebration. And on December 9th, I was at the Christmas parade put on by PVRPD, and it was great despite the wind. And then later that night, we had the employee recognition dinner, and shout out to staff for having made an awesome night. It was really fun. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Tennyson.
On November 14th, I attended the Investment Committee meeting. November 16th, the Association of Water Agencies Information Breakfast Series. On the 7th of December, the RDP 21 board meeting in the afternoon here at City Hall. On December 12th, the Association of Water Agencies annual year-end corporate night. Today, along with Councilmember Kildee or Vice Mayor Kildee, the Special Investment Committee meeting and the Finance Committee meeting, as well as the DeSalter Learning Center grand opening, the Christmas parade, the menorah lighting here at Constitution Park.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Kildee.
Right, I also attended the DeSalter grand opening, November 14th Investment Committee meeting. November 16th, we had a VRSD meeting I attended. December 6th, actually, I also attended the lighting of the menorah in Constitution Park. December 6th, the council reorganization. December 7th, we had a VRSD meeting. December 9th, they had the Christmas parade and the employees' dinner. December 13th, we had an investment committee meeting with Councilmember Tennyson. And December 13th, we had a finance committee meeting. And would this be appropriate time to see if we could adjourn, if you would? Yeah, I'd like to request if the council is agreeable to adjourn tonight in the memory of Dr. Ken Anderson. And Dr. Ken Anderson was a dentist in town for many, many years. Many of us knew him. Great person, very active in the Lions Club, and big supporter of the city. And if you wanted a positive influence and be around a positive person, look his name up in the dictionary and it'll be Ken Anderson. He was one of the most positive people that I ever met in my life, and it's an honor and a privilege to know him and to continue to know him. And his 3 daughters and all of his family, he's going to be sorely missed. So if we would entertain that we could adjourn in the memory of Ken Anderson. And Ken had one of the best smiles that I ever knew, so he's up in heaven, and I'm going to put him in charge of smiling up in heaven. So that's Ken. If you do that, I appreciate it.
Without objection, we'll go ahead and adjourn in memory of Dr. Anderson. Let me go ahead and give a quick recitation of the meetings or events I attended. And just so people know, we're required to give a recitation of the meetings and so on that we attend. And actually, since our last regular meeting was on November 8th, that's why it's so long tonight. On November 9th, the City DeSalter Learning Center. On November 11th, the Miracle League Field dedication. On the 14th, the Ventura County Department of Airports, the Airport Layout Plan Workshop that we'll be learning more about later this evening. On November 16th, the Ventura County Sheriff's Foundation held a fundraiser for Shop with a Cop. On November 17, a member of the Metrolink Board of Directors in Los Angeles, and I was at that meeting. On November 20, the county's Behavioral Health Advisory Board. On November 21, the Ventura County Transportation Commission, Santa Paula Branch Line meeting. On November 27, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee with Councilmember Martinez Bravo. On November 28, the Policy Committee with Mayor Santangelo. In November 28th to 30th, and I'll speak about this briefly in a few minutes, I attended the Association of California Water Agencies Conference in Indian Wells. On December 1, a meeting of the Ventura County Transportation Commission. On December 2, I was privileged to present a certificate of recognition to Sensei Sean Donaher of Camarillo Shotokan Karate. On December 6th, we had our City Council reorganization meeting. You're detecting a pattern here in what we all are doing, right? On December 7, the Ventura County Civic Alliance holiday celebration and the Camarillo Chabad's Hanukkah Unite with Light celebration. On December 8, a Metrolink board meeting. On December 9, the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District Christmas Parade, and again, a shout out to the Recreation and Park District for doing a wonderful job every year, notwithstanding the winds this year. The Livingston Memorial Foundation, a Light Up a Life celebration, and then our city employee recognition dinner on the evening of December 9, and again, a shout out to our staff. They are, as I said, on December 6th, simply the best. On December 11th, an ad hoc meeting for Healthy Camarillo with Councilmember Santangelo. Very quickly, relative to the Association of California Water Agencies, it's actually item O on tonight's calendar with a recommendation by staff, which I support, to join ACWA. And I support that recommendation. It was a worthwhile conference. There were substantive topics on many items, including legislation affecting agencies, on Prop 218, and local rate-making authority for local public agencies, and a new rate-making initiative, which we will all see in November of next year on the November 24 ballot, which will have a significant impact on rate-making for public entities if it's adopted. There's also an additional constitutional amendment on the ballot that was put on by the legislature, ACA 13. Those issues will be front and center next November, and we'll be doing a lot of discussion about it, I know, in the months ahead. And then alternative financing options for utilities projects. So that was the ACWA conference, and pleased to report on that. And that brings us to the end of comments by council. Are there any staff comments and reports? Mr. Ramirez? Nothing? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Okay. All right. I know I saw you. All right, we're going to move on now to consent calendar, and I'll note that we're going to pull item M, which is the 2024 City Council and Board regular meeting schedule for discussion. I don't want to pull item J, I just want to make a brief comment. Are there any other items that members of the council want to pull from consent?
No, I wanted to pull M as well, so that's perfect.
That's great, Martita. Okay, so with that, may I hear a motion to adopt the consent calendar? It's in its entirety with the exception of item M.
I'll move.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. My only brief comment is with respect to item J, which is the report from our independent auditors for our financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. I wanted to give a shout out to our finance department, Mark Uribe, our director. It was an extremely well done report. Our auditors found no issues in our report. We are very proud in this city of our financial stability and the transparency that we operate under, and our finance department does an excellent job in that respect. So with that, I think we can proceed. Oh, Mr. Kildee.
Would you mind if I make a quick comment?
I don't mind at all. Okay. Go ahead.
Councilmember Tennyson and I are on the Finance Committee, and we received a report from the auditor, and it was a glowing report. And it actually was completed earlier than what was required. So not only was everything top flight, it was done earlier than what typically it does. So he had a lot of superlatives to say, especially to the staff, and our staff is great here. So I want to thank the staff for all the hard work that they do.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Okay, I think at this point, we're ready for a vote on the motion and second. Please vote. All right, and that motion is adopted on a 5-0 vote. Let's go to item M. Mr. Ramirez, do you have some thoughts for us on that?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. Item M is the adoption of our regularly scheduled council meetings for the year of 2024. And on that, it's by ordinance, and it is scheduled as the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month. However, there are two meetings that are in conflict of two different educational opportunities for the city council and staff, and that is, I'll start with the May 8th meeting that is in a direct conflict with the Aqua annual conference that is from 7th to the 9th, so staff is proposing to move that meeting from Wednesday, the May 8th to Monday, May 6th. For your consideration and adoption, as well as our second meeting in February that is in conflict with the CASA Public Policy Forum. That is our Association of Sanitation Agencies that we belong to and actively participate in. It's in conflict with that, and we are proposing to move that meeting from Wednesday, February 28th to Thursday, the next day, February 29th, for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Those are both relatively minor dates. Everybody have those. The February 28 meeting would be moved to February 29. The May 8 regular meeting would be moved to May 6. Do any council members have any questions with respect to those two items? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. I just want to make sure that we have enough time to let the public know that there will be some changes on this, because they get in, we all get into our grooves here. I just want to make sure that there's public outreach to let them know exactly, when these meetings are. So that would just be more of a comment than a question of mine.
Understood. Councilmember Martinez-Bravo.
Yes, I think these conferences are important. There is so much benefit into attending these, so I think it is important to make those accommodations. And I agree with Councilmember Kildee in the sense that it is important to notify our community so they are aware. And in addition, I will motion to move forward with this change. In addition, I would also like to propose for our policy committee to further look into and extend our summer recess schedule from going from one dark meeting to two dark meetings, and to change the timing of our summer recess schedule from August to July to accommodate families and school sessions. So I'm, I guess, putting a couple things in the motion, and it would be to go, the second part would be to go through the policy committee.
All right. Does anyone have any questions of Councilmember Martinez-Bravo with respect to, I think I heard you make the motion, correct? Let's do this. Let's get do I hear a second on that motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions relative to the motion? Mr. Kildee.
Would it be permissible to council members also to put in what their suggestions might be for that time as well? So the policy committee can have, some of our input as well when they go through their deliverance on this.
Maybe we could hear from the city attorney on that, because we want to make sure that we're respectful of any Brown Act requirements in terms of participation.
Yeah, the items
how do we do that?
Yeah, well, the item's on the agenda. If you just want to have a discussion about, what you wanted to say to the committee, the other option is you just wait for the committee to look at it and come back. That's typically how you guys handle your committee. You get recommendations from the committee.
We could do it that way, too. Why don't we just do it that way? That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion. We have a second. Let's vote, please. All right, that motion is adopted on a 5-0 vote. That brings us to the end of our consent calendar. And it brings us now to the first discussion item, which is item AD, which is the airport layout plan update. And we're happy to have with us tonight Keith Freitas, who is the Director of Airports for the County of Ventura. Mr. Freitas, welcome. Thanks for being here this evening. Oh, you know what? It would help if I turned your lectern on. There we go.
How about that?
The mic went on.
Is that good?
That's good.
Mayor and council members, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, one, to invite me to speak, but the opportunity to kind of give a quick presentation. So I have to first start with, going through some of the meetings and public input that we've done in the last year and a half. We could have done a little better, and then we're going to start tonight kind of talking about the whole picture. So that's what you're going to see tonight from us as an update, the airport layout plan. We have a noise study also going on concurrently, and then some of the frequently asked questions that we've been hearing, I want to say over the last year, 6 months kind of thing. So is this a thing that I can move slides with, maybe?
It's supposed to be.
Maybe. Fine. Could be operator error. Anything's possible. So just the arrow forward, back? Maybe this way?
See, this is what happens sometimes with technology. We'll get it fixed.
Nothing yet.
There we go.
All right. So what I thought I'd start with is kind of the history. Most of you remember almost 3 years ago, the airport department, Ventura County, was talking about airport master plan, where we'd look in detail what are the uses that we want to see for the airport. In our first initial public meeting, you see kind of the dates moving down there, and then concurrently the city here was also looking, well, they did their own survey. You did your own survey, and we got all that feedback, and candidly the answer was, we don't want to see change with Camarillo Airport. So after that, I kind of came into the process. The county had put on hold the master plan process, and as I came about a year and a half ago, said, we're not going to do the master plan process. We're going to step that down and just do an airport layout plan, which is the piece, and I'll kind of go into that the FAA requires us to do to keep current, to get grant funding, to maintain the airport. So we pivoted from master plan to an ALP, which says we're not changing the use of the airport and just meeting the FAA basic requirements. And at the same time said, well, we've been hearing from the community, hearing from the city council members, the survey, that noise was a pretty big issue for this community. So we went and requested grant funding and got grant funding to do master plan, an airport ALP update, and concurrently do airport noise study. So you see on that chart there, we've conducted 2 public meetings so far, one in March, one in November and September for the noise studies and the ALP updates. So 2 separate plans. One is the ALP is really just meeting FAA requirements so that we can be current to get FAA grant funding. The other is the noise study, which is most important at this point, I think, to the community members. So again, what's an ALP update? Document depicts existing planned facilities. Again, we're not making any changes. It's how do we maintain the facilities that we have, and we have to have a current one to get FAA grant funding. I want to stress, I've said this now multiple times before the City Council, we support the Joint Powers Agreement that was signed in 1976 between the city and the county. I spoke with Supervisor Long and Supervisor Lopez and the county administrator, Dr. Savette Johnson, just today to confirm there are no changes. They continue to support that agreement between the county and the city. So what does that mean? Again, no changes to the airport use, no runway length changes, no airline service, no large air cargo. I'll say it again for the manyth time. And then we kind of have here's where we are with the plan. Again, the ALP, the Airport Layout Plan Study. Third public meeting is slated at this point for next February 20th, 2024 at the Ventura County Office of Education. We'll be wrapping up that process and getting final draft and final comments from folks on the plan. And then we move into the noise study that we're doing. Again, 2 concurrent plans, that process that we're going through. This is the Part 150, the noise study. Most interest from the community members that we've seen so far. Broken up into 2 parts, noise exposure map that we just went through. You'll see it on the next slide. That we've taken the better part of 2023 going through that. And then we go into the noise compatibility plan for 2024. That is the most important and critical part of this whole process where people want to be involved in. And that's where we developed a laundry list of what things we're going to do to be better neighbors to try to mitigate noise for the community members. So 2024 is a key. You want to be a part of that. And then on the right side, that doesn't mean we're not doing things right now. We're working with voluntary programs and working with pilots and the businesses and the neighbors to do things right now as we go through this plan. And again, here is kind of a timeline of the true, on the left side, noise exposure map. We're kind of through that, obviously, the end of the year. Now we move in first part of 2024 in the noise study and the things that we're going to identify, more public workshops. We're at technical listening sessions, again, with the users of the airport, the neighbors of the airport, our city neighbors and things like that, going through that. Most of 24, coming up with an ultimate plan, again, the laundry list of things we're going to do, implement, evaluate to be better neighbors, to mitigate the noise concerns. So this goes back to the noise contours. This is what you see. The 60 contours, the dotted outline. The FAA looks at the 65 CNEO contour, which is the inner solid line that doesn't leave, basically, for the most part, the airport. And they look at that to see if there's any impacts, meaning for community residents. That doesn't mean, and be clear, that we don't have noise concerns from neighbors outside these. This is just the FAA's guidance and guidelines that they require that we follow. We know that we have issues with neighbors outside of these lines. And then by comparison, the last noise study we did in 1998, you can see not much difference in 24-year period between what was in 1998 captured and 2022 in the contours. So now we get into, again, the last part, which is the Q&A. And I think this is the most important, and happy to answer more questions from you after this. But some of the big questions we've heard is, how does the city, the Camarillo Airport Authority, Department of Airports, FAA kind of all intertwine, interact? So as you've reported out, City of Camarillo not only signed the agreement, Joint Powers Agreement with the county in 1976. That was kind of the starting point, which also created the Airport Authority, Camarillo Airport Authority. 2 council members from this council participate on it, as do 2 Board of Supervisors, and then there's 1 public member on it. So it's advisory. Then the Board of Supervisors ultimately approves the plan or documents that we have to move forward. But ultimately, we have to abide by agreements that we made when we accepted that former military base, now Camarillo Airport, with the FAA and federal government, and also the grant obligations every time we take a grant to fund and improve, maintain that facility. Has the types of aircraft operations changed over the years? The answer is yes. Over the last 20 years, certain types of aircraft operations have increased while others have decreased. I have a little chart here. So this is, again, the last, and these are specific because these are actual numbers and various reports that we've done over the years. Very bottom, you'll see, 24 years ago, the operations are pretty much the same. They were a little bit lower in last year in 2022 at 187,000 operation. An operation is either a landing or a takeoff. Decrease in 2009, again, that's typically the economy or less demand in aviation causes a dip, but that happens over the years. So then you have helicopter operations, jet operations, piston. Turboprop is a jet engine that is combined with a propeller on it. So it's technically a jet engine in an airplane. So, many of the concerns we've heard recently from neighbors is, the increase in jet operations. There has been an increase in jet operations. Putting it in perspective, the 0.5% in 1998 versus the 4.25% last year, the 187,000 equates to about 512 operations a day. Again, presumably on average, half of those are landings, half of those are takeoffs. So you have about 3 operations a day in 1998, so 1.5 arrivals and 1.5 departures, if you will. And the 4.25 equates to about 22, so 11 arrivals, 11 departures out of the 512 a day. So 22 out of the 512 operations per day. So, but you'll see, turboprop kind of went up, and that's down. Helicopters were up in 1998. Those are down. Piston aircraft operations slightly up. And then the next slide shows that in perspective of total operations. So by far, the bulk of our operations are piston. In 2022, that was near 90% of our operations were the small piston type operations. Is the ALP update and associated forecast a marketing plan? The answer is no. So the ALP, Airport Layout Plan, we get information from the FAA, modeling information, what the FAA expects, the growth projections, and by type of aircraft for the United States, and then our consultants take that and put that into our region, and it's basically numbers that are set by the FAA. So it's not the county or the airport looking for more types of airplanes or more airplanes. We're a transportation system. We're much like Highway 101, where you've seen traffic increase over the last 5, 10, 20 years. As the cities around us grow, the demand grows. And particularly the corporate aircraft we're seeing, those are driven by the business. 90+% of those operations are the business. They're doing business in this area that are bringing those aircraft. Can the county just say no to more aircraft, more jets? And the answer is no. As I mentioned, FAA and federal obligations, again, when we accepted the infrastructure, the improvements called the Camarillo Airport, it was the Oxnard Air Force Base at the time, we have obligations to operate and open and make it free and accessible to folks, not free, to make it accessible to folks that want to use the aviation system. So we can't discriminate against a certain type or numbers of who gets to use the airport. Is the Camarillo Airport going to add airline service, air cargo, lengthen the runway? Again, the answer is no. There's no intent to do that. As I mentioned earlier, Joint Powers Agreement, confirmation, we're supportive of that, and those wouldn't be allowed in that agreement. So no to all of those things. As a matter of fact, as we go through the airport layout plan process, we would have to meet new standards. And if we significantly touch the runway, one of the things the FAA is asking us to look at, and we would expect to have to do, is currently it's near a little bit over 6,000 feet in length and 150 feet wide. New standards, it would be narrowed to 100 feet in width. That's the new standard for an airport our size and the types of airplanes using our airport. So actually, we'd be shrinking it, and we've already, in our design, per the Joint Powers Agreement, currently the runway is 6,013 feet long. Joint Powers Agreement says it should be 6,000, so in our plan is to shrink it also in length by 13 feet. Does the Airport Joint Powers Agreement ban all nighttime operations? The answer is no. Arrivals are allowed 24 hours a day. It's the takeoffs or the departures that are not allowed from midnight to 5 a.m. Except for sheriff, emergency, federal, military, and state aircraft are exempt from that. Did the county see 90 dBA readings near the airport during the noise testing monitoring? As I mentioned in one of the slides, We did additional sampling, noise monitoring for a 4-month period where we captured 3,122 aircraft operations. In that, only one exceeded the 90 decibel, and that was a 50-60 era military aircraft. You can't see it, but in the left side of this chart is 31 of the top noise specific, and only one, the top one, was at 96. That was, again, a older jet military aircraft, which is exempt from civilian limits and noise. And that was in Area 6. So you see the noise monitors we have, 1, 2, and 3 are in Old Town area, and then 6 is up near Spanish Hills area. So last, what is the Department of Airports doing about noise? I've heard community members, and I completely understand. When I first came 2 years ago, noise was a concern. And, you know, I guess I would answer, and I've even had community members say, you know, have you hearing us? I've heard this council, and I've met with each of you individually, some of you many times. Noise is a concern for this community. And I told you a year and a half ago when I came, there was things we were going to do. I'm happy to report we've done most, if not all of them. You know, I hired somebody for the first time, communications engagement manager. Most of you know Jeanette Haregi on our team. Out there, engaging with the community. Her focus is noise abatement, noise mitigation. We've implemented the Fly Friendly BC noise program. We've purchased noise flight tracking software system and hardware. We pivoted from the master plan, again, an important point, to the ALP. We were looking at, should we do changes to the airport? And the consensus was no. And so we pivoted to just do the bare minimum, which is the ALP update, no changes to the airport. And the last is the noise study. I think I've reported out before. That's about a $700 and something thousand process that we are going through to focus on noise, engaging the community members, and going through that detailed process. So for everybody that's interested in, again, I would encourage those in the community that you want to participate. It's the noise study component. And go onto our website, get the news blast that we send out. Encourage you to do that. And that's all I have for tonight, and happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas, very much for your presentation. I know that we have, I have some speaker cards from the public, but before we get to that, are there members of the council who have questions? Councilmember Tennyson.
Thank you. Keith, is the sole purpose of the ALP to allow the county airports to apply for the grants to do improvements and runway fixes?
The answer is yes. If we didn't have to keep that updated, we wouldn't be doing it. So to update that is ensuring that we get our grants. They want to make sure we have a plan to address the forecasts and the demand in the transportation, the national transportation system. So the short answer is yes.
And it's not for expansion of more FBOs or more flights in and out of Camarillo necessarily, but it's to accommodate future needs.
Right. If you wanted to change and expand specifically, you'd be looking at master plan. What different things can we do? And the master plan is where you would do that. And in a master plan, unlike an ALP, there's no environmental process in an ALP update because it's a planning document. In a master plan, you would have to do an environmental document with that.
Is there or has there ever been any consideration of expanding the hours of no takeoffs beyond the midnight to 5 a.m.?
That is a fair question. What was happening, I'll try to make this short, across the country is airports across the country were making their own rules, and that was impacting the national transportation system, which our airports are a part of. There's 3,300 airports in the national transportation system. So in 1990, the federal government said no more, called ANCA was the regulation. It basically grandfathered every rule, regulation that was in place in 1990. So that's why we got to keep our joint powers agreement. It has some limitations. You hear Santa Monica is a good neighbor airport you hear that has some restrictions. So there's airports all grandfathered in. Moving forward, you had to go through a Part 161 study. I'll give you an example. There was one airport since 1990 that's had one segment of their proposed noise restriction approved by the FAA. No other airports in the United States since 1990 have had a Part 161 document approved. So us changing or making new rules is next to impossible. I'll give you our neighbors. Burbank spent $7 million in 7 years, submitted their plan to the FAA, and they said no.
So a follow-up to that, Department of the Airports, County Department of the Airports has absolutely no authority whatsoever to regulate the aircraft in the sky.
That is correct. It would be deemed discriminatory if we selected an entity. I got an issue right now with an entity that wants to do skydiving, which is a recognized aeronautical use of airports. So we're trying to figure if I can't just say no to something like that.
And I know you're trying to educate the FBOs and the pilots, the aircraft operators. What's the reception been so far when you explain to them the number of complaints from the community on the noise specifically?
I can tell you that unequivocally it is supported 100%. They get it. You know, if you think about it, most pilots, flight crews, owners live in this community. They have the planes near where they live, and that's where the flight crew and all of that. They want to be good neighbors. For business purpose, sometimes that doesn't work, but they're hearing and they're working, and that's what we're doing. Jeanette and our team is working to educate those folks. That hasn't happened. Again, that's on us. That's a part of the process we're going through, is to educate them. Here's what is happening and what changes can be made. As I mentioned, that's as we go into the noise compatibility program in this noise study. Those are the other things that the experts, the pilots, will help us figure out things that we can do better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's up next? Councilmember Martinez-Bravo?
Keith, thank you so much for your presentation, and I had the honor to sit on Airport Authority this year. I can't believe it was a year, but it went by so fast. And one of the things that I really appreciated was always your willingness to meet with City Council, with our staff, and members of the public. I don't think I ever had a time where you denied any meeting. You were always so willing to be there, be present, and to explain to the best of your ability, what's going on. So I also appreciate your willingness to state like you're always willing to do better. That's, I think, one of your strengths. And so I did want to ask, obviously we're not perfect human beings, we're human beings. And I wanted to ask, given the last workshop that happened here in Camarillo, do you foresee, or is there a plan to have more of a question, like a Q&A type of forum to provide our community members an opportunity to be heard?
The answer is, of course, and for 100% yes. This was kind of the start, which is why I gave a history and kind of a bigger overview. Some of the comments we've had in the last couple meetings is we want more seating. Instead of a round-the-room discussion, we want a presentation, and then, as you mentioned at the end, Q&A. So we are gearing that up for our next meetings, both in the AOP update and the noise study. It'll be more of a presentation, here's the information, what's going on, and then allow the folks to, put written questions. We'll have a facilitator, and right there, hear the question. If we can answer it, we'll do that right there. If we need more time, we'll respond in writing. But yes.
Okay, thank you so much. My next question, and thank you, Councilmember Tennyson, for covering some of my questions there in terms of what limitations do we have, not only we as a city, but the county, and what has to be under like FAA jurisdiction, so as to say. And I know that in your report, and this was a concern that I have heard from community members. In your report, it states that the airport had a 56% increase in the number of jet and turboprop operations over the 10-year period from 2013 to 2022, and the 20-year forecast anticipates a continued growth in operations by these aircraft and a 126% increase. And so I think that 126% increase is a concern, and I wanted to ask if you can speak to that.
Yeah, and that's why the chart that I put up, had, if I can go back to it, maybe. The percentages look big, but it's the numbers. So because it was 0.5% in 1998, and you look at 2022, 4.25%, we go from 3 jets a day to 22 out of 500 operations a day. So that's the actual. And then the projected, again, those are numbers, well, and again, I'll point to the very bottom, and the total number of operations from 24 years ago, we're below that last year. So most projections have a growth, that's normal. I did a little history looking back. The city of Camarillo, 1960, I think, had 2,400 people, and this year it has 70,000, right? So we're a transportation system, so as the region grows, the demand grows for us. It's not the other way around. People use our facility because their business is here or they live here. So that's, we don't try to push for growth. We're not in the marketing business. That's not how it works. We're just reactionary. And again, those growth numbers, those are projections, numbers that were given to us by the FAA, what they foresee in the United States. This is what you should expect.
And given your experience, and since we'll also be seeing the closure of the Santa Monica Airport, what, in your perspective, what will be the impact to Camarillo?
First, I would say that, City of Santa Monica shortened their runway to 3,500 feet 6 years ago. So that took out most of the jets already. So 6 years ago, those jets have already been dispersed, if you will. So now we're looking probably at the small piston airplanes. It goes to the point of what I mentioned is if you live in that area, it's a stretch for those folks to want to come all the way to Camarillo or to Oxnard. They're going to go to closer airports, LAX or Van Nuys, something that is closer. It could happen, but that would be a guess. But most people want to be by their aircraft for the convenience and the use as a tool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And just my last comment. During the year, one of the highlights at the airport authority meetings was when we would highlight people who are doing really wonderful work and helping others. For example, we had a nonprofit who I think it's the volunteers or board members, they were pilots, and what they would do is they would meet the needs of people who needed to be transported from one place to another. And that really warmed my heart because, sometimes we don't think about these needs, but they are being met by volunteers. And I know one of the individuals who is also on our airport authority, he's a pilot as well. And so I think getting that perspective and seeing so many of the pilots that show up to also learn more about the Fly Friendly program, I think that is a good direction. So I just wanted to thank you on that.
Councilmember Santangelo.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm going to ask a few questions. Some of my questions have already been asked that are repetitious. Is the airport marketing to jets or to private jet companies to bring in their business to our airport?
The airport does not do that, no.
Okay, thank you. Is the airport building up the runway to be able to handle larger or heavier jets that would be outside of the 1976 agreement?
We are not, nothing, I think, but as I recall, the Joint Powers Agreement says nothing over 115,000 pounds, and we will be below that. It is an old runway, 40-plus years, so we've got some emergency repairs we're looking to do this year, something larger over the next, 5 to 10 years. But again, no changes to our commitment on the Joint Powers Agreement.
Why do you think there's so much misinformation? And I'm not trying to make light of it. It's, I've received emails in the past week that state these very things. And so I'm trying to find out where the disconnect is. And I just appreciate your thoughts.
This might, I think that's a social question, but I'll give my best shot. All I can say is, I've been doing this for 30-plus years. Noise is a very passionate issue for folks, and I completely understand that. Hopefully, my presentation tonight has shown our commitment. I came up a year and a half ago and told the things we would be doing. Well, that's nice. Keith, new director, was just talking. I've shown that we've been doing those. Our commitment, and we're in the middle of those things, and those things have happened. So I get the passion, and I think that's what happens is people hear something, they think it's right, and today's social media, now it just balloons across. It used to be a couple people, neighbors talking, and now you put something in social media and 200 people have misinformation. So I thank you all for inviting me tonight to try to get more information. That's what our public meetings are trying to do. And as I mentioned in the very beginning, we're going to do a better job of telling the whole picture. I think we were going through the process trying to help people go through it chapter by chapter, and they kind of lost where we were. And that's what we're doing tonight, and we're going to do it again in our next public presentations, is tell the whole picture so everybody understands where we've been, what we're committed to, and where we're headed. And so hopefully that helps.
It does. Thank you. Just my comment, without, and I think you've expressed this, is that the growth we're seeing at the airport isn't because we're marketing it or trying to pull it in or trying to drive the business at the airport. It's just a reflection of the growth of Camarillo and surrounding area. Along with it, the airport's going to grow as well. So anyway, I really appreciate, again, you being here tonight. I appreciate your commitment to try to improve the meetings as we go along and to always be sort of changing them so that we can meet better meet the needs of the community. So thanks again.
Vice Mayor Kildee?
Yeah, Keith, have you ran a county airport in your career before?
I was the director of airports for Contra Costa County, which had 2 airports similar to Oxnard and Camarillo for 18 years.
Do they have similar issues in county-run airports as we're going through this particular?
I would say all airports have similar issues. If you're talking specifically noise issues, yes.
And were you able, as a county airport, were you able to find some workable solutions to this? Were there dialogues that started here, and I don't want to call them solutions, but some general ideas that could improve situations as far as noise? Because as we all know, noise is, if not the number one issue, it certainly is one of the top of the heaps here.
No question about it that I truly believe, and I'll tell you, we've made progress at Oxnard Airport. It is a different noise issue. Theirs happens to be touch and go, small airplanes. But I truly believe we will make improvements. I can't say that if you live within a couple miles of the airport that you'll never see an airplane. I won't make that commitment. That's not going to happen. But are there things we can do to improve? Old Town, we get a lot of calls from Old Town about the number of jets. I do believe we can make changes and adjustments to make it better.
And when you were hired on by the county, were you aware of noise issues here in Camarillo?
I was well aware. I did my homework before I accepted this job, for sure. There was a lot of news media before I came. So yes, there was a lot to absorb.
So we can't really limit the amount of takeoffs and landings here, but is there some statistics about how much we can expect in the future year as far as corporate aircraft using the airport? Is there any statistical analysis in the future that is available, perhaps?
You know, the forecasts are probably the best indicator. You know, some of it is how much space do we have, and, you know, we don't have any new big hangars being built even, and that process is a 4 or 5. Cloud9, the last development that went up, was a 5-year process. So, you know, it's that. The other is, you know, the area is pretty developed in bringing in new businesses that have their own corporate airplanes. You know, it's not like you have 10 of those that happen a month or even a year. That kind of is over a longer period of time. So,
Is there any, my last question, any statistics on the piston-type aircraft as to whether or not in the future where they will be, for instance?
well, that goes into the information we get to the FAA is there's a American Manufacturing Association that talks about how many piston airplanes, turbine helicopter, and jet airplanes are, you know, on the books to be manufactured. So you have some of that. But the more valuable is kind of the forecast that we have. But even as I showed you here, you know, I guarantee you the 1998, I haven't gone back to it, will forecast there'll be more than what was in that year. And 24 years later, we actually had less.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, you know, they're planning for the what if, but they don't usually go way under. They go, well, you know, here's 2-3% growth. Sometimes you don't meet that.
And there'll be continuous planning on that as the years go.
Well, we'll have to, but again, we also have a space issue. I mean, we don't have many acres left to develop, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
We might have 20 acres remaining. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, and thanks again for your presentation, Mr. Freitas. Can we go back to the slide? First of all, I want to compliment my colleagues on asking very good questions. I just want to go back through one item. It's the slide dealing with jurisdictional, interjurisdictional. And to the extent it's repetitive, but I apologize, but I think it's important nonetheless. You're getting to it. It's part of the FAQ, I think. Maybe it was the first question. There we go. All right. So in your own words, we have a number of players here. We have the City of Camarillo, we have the Camarillo Airport Authority, we've got the County Department of Airports, and we have the FAA. Can you, in your own words, just explain what each one does and what each one does not do?
There's a lot there. Well, let's start with the Department of Airports in the county. We own, operate the airport. By us doing that, you know, there was a partnership, at least input in the Joint Powers Agreement. So that was back in 1976, City Council.
And that was a contract, and that's a contractual obligation. It's a contract between the city on the one hand and the county on the other.
And that created the Airport Authority, in which that Airport Authority would provide recommendations to the Board of Supervisors that ultimately approve, deny actions that happen at the airport. So 2 city council members from Camarillo, 2 from the Board of Supervisors, 1 at large. They hear issues. Let's take a lease. We have a lease at the airport. We would run that through them, and they will vote and make a recommendation. That recommendation ultimately would be then forwarded on to the Board of Supervisors, county.
Right, and that's a recommendation. That's advisory.
Right.
Okay.
And then again, the board would take whatever action they ultimately take. Over the top of that is the FAA and the obligations. Again, when we, the county, accepted the airport, we had obligations that we would operate it as an airport, make it open and available to those that want to use that infrastructure. Right? And they handed us keys for this infrastructure, runways and taxiways and some buildings. So we have obligations, and we add to those obligations every time we take a federal grant, typically to maintain runways, taxiways, the infrastructure. So it's double layer of obligations, each grant, and also when we took that.
Right, the way I think of it, you have a baseline set of obligations, but then you have some continuing obligations on a go-forward basis every time the Department of Airports accepts grant funds from the FAA.
Right. It's a clock that restarts. Basically, we have a 20-year obligation with the FAA. When we take a grant, that restarts a 20-year clock.
Okay.
So we take one this year, that starts 20 years. And that basic obligation is that you will maintain this airport and keep it open and available for aviation airport uses.
Okay, all right, that's great. Thank you very much for that. Before I go to public speakers, are there any other questions by any other members of the council?
Not at this
I want to take, go ahead, Mr. Freitas.
I want to end with one thing is I can guarantee you the Department of Airports, myself, all the way down, are very passionate about working with our community, with the city council members on finding solutions. I can appreciate, as I mentioned, that, some people don't like change. I won't lie. I'm one of those that wish my 2 boys stayed 5 and that my dogs were puppies always. I understand, but life does change and things do change around us. I don't like it. I got that. So we are committed to doing the best to make those improvements and changes as best we can. I understand also that it doesn't happen fast enough for many.
Usually things don't. So, before I call for public speakers, I just want to, there are a number of individuals I know who are monitoring tonight's council meeting, and they have an interest in other items that are on, items AE, AF, and AG, respectively. It's past 6 o'clock. We want to go through this particular item and finish this item. And after this, then I'm going to call, after we finish with this particular item, just looking forward, the game plan is to take a 10-minute recess, and then to come back and take our 6 o'clock calendar, which is a public comment followed by those 3 items, AE, F, and G. Is that acceptable to everybody? All right. With that in mind, then, we're going to go ahead. I have, thank you, Mr. Freitas, very much. We're going to go ahead. I have 4 speaker cards for individuals who would like to speak with this item or on this item. Looks like we have a 5th card coming up as well. What I ask the speakers to do is we have a 3 minutes allotted per speaker, and I will enforce that in order to be fair to all. There is no yielding of time to other speakers. We ask that you be respectful to others, that you address your remarks to the council and not to others, and please try not to be cumulative. If somebody already said what you want to say, we have a little tradition on the council of simply saying ditto. So I would ask that you consider that. When you come forward, please state your name. I will call the names, and then I will also call the person who is next to speak. And since it's almost baseball season, I will say to that second person that they're on deck. It's almost baseball season. We're getting there. All right. Thank you. Here we go. Our first speaker up is Joe Mitchell, and on deck is Walt De La Torre. Mr. Mitchell?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Joe Mitchell, and I live in Old Town, and I actually live right under the flight path, approach path. Lucky me. And so I just want to give you some perspective of someone living under the planes as they come in. And it's particularly, of course, it's the jets, turboprops. When I was working from home, I had a lot of Zoom meetings, and it was difficult because even with the doors closed, and it was difficult because I don't have air conditioning in the summertime, I'd have to put myself on mute because as they're coming over. Now, it's not stacked up like LAX coming in, but when they come over, and some are louder than others, more modern ones are a little less loud, but people would ask me if I was at the airport or something, or LAX, and it was pretty bad. And I think that people who aren't that close to it don't have a perspective of how loud it is. We'll be watching TV, and we have to mute the TV, or pause the TV when one comes over. And again, they're not all loud, but some are louder than others. And it's pretty loud, and they come in at all hours of the night, too. Now, there's not a lot that come in at 2 or 3 in the morning, but there are some, and it does have the tendency to wake you up if you have your windows open, for sure. So I just want to let you know, give you some perspective of someone who lives under that, and it has definitely increased over the years. I've lived there since 1995. It's never been a real issue. I know there's an airport there. The civil aviation was fine, but the past 3 years, the jet traffic has really increased, and quite frankly, our quality of life is kind of been diluted because we spend a lot of time outdoors on the patio, and when people come visit us, they hear this approach, and they kind of look at it and go, whoa. You know, it's and you can't have a conversation while it's going over. So, and the thought of having that increase 126% in the next 20 years, you know, property values, air pollution, noise pollution, and it's just a quality of life issue for us. So I just wanted to give you some perspective on that as someone who lives under it now and going forward as the numbers increase. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for your comments. Next up is Walt De La Torre, and on deck will be Kyle Johnson.
Good evening. Walt De La Torre, resident of Old Town Camarillo for over 35 years. When there's talk of all the recent large jet traffic, some tell us it's just progress and growth and business as usual, but this isn't usual. We haven't torn down Old Town businesses to make big new stores. We haven't torn down Old Town houses for new high-rises and rich mansions. That's not who we are here. But that's who's flying in these private jets. So it's not really for the residents. And the talk about building up the airport or having it be about the same, there's already a new airport private luxury hangar, and that's a huge difference. And is it like more cars on the freeway? It isn't about the small planes. And having these large jets isn't about more small planes like more cars. It's the difference of having cars going down your street or having a train go down your street several times a day and night. And this is not the appeal of Camarillo. The jets are the same loud that they were 2 years ago. Jets aren't any quieter. And jets are still flying over the art studio in Old Town Camarillo. The small planes, prop planes are coming in over the fields a little bit more, but not the jets, right over Old Town. So, we want Camarillo to stay beautiful. We want Camarillo to stay peaceful. We want Camarillo to stay desirable, and we want our leadership to maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Kyle Johnson, and Renee Hatcher will be on deck.
Hi, I'm Kyle Johnson. I'll say ditto to a lot of the statements that were made. I have some thoughts here in no particular order, but I think it's important to note that jets make up the majority of nighttime operations, as shown by the studies that have been done. And I have a 2-year-old, and so she's lived there her whole life, and many times the jets have woken her up, and I'm already sleep deprived, so it was a lot. I also don't like the comparison of the airport to Highway 101. Highway 101 serves basically everybody. Airplanes are very expensive, like even prop planes, but jets especially, it's cost prohibitive for serving everyone. I do think that airport landing fees should reflect the time that they're landing. I think that's a change we could make soon and maybe discourage jets from landing at night. In the noise study, the state of California imposes like a 4-time multiplier on the jet noise if they land after 6 p.m. and 10 times if they land after 9 p.m. So why don't the fees for landing reflect that? The state of California shows that that's the penalty they give it, so let's penalize the jets as well. I think that in the presentation given there, the forecasts should have been included for the number of operations for the future. According to the study that I've been a part of, the Part 150, turboprop and jet together will make up 20% of all operations in 2042. I think that the statement "most owners live in the community" is a bit misleading. Most owners of maybe the Most owners of the piston aircraft probably live in the community, but I think everyone here is mostly concerned with the jets, and I would be pretty surprised if most owners of the jets lived in Camarillo, because jets are very expensive. And if I could buy a jet, I wouldn't live in Camarillo. Like, I love Camarillo, but I'd be living in Malibu. Speaking of Malibu, with Santa Monica closing, Malibu is right in between Santa Monica and Camarillo, so I wouldn't be surprised if people who live in Malibu are now using Camarillo as their airport. Speaking of the misinformation that the community is getting, I'll say the layout plan meeting we had, the presentation there was not great, and I'm about out of time, I guess. But I do think that there can be some improvements to the communication that's being done, as well as the information that's included in the Part 150 study. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your comments. The next speaker up is Renee Hatchard, to be followed by Merrill Burry.
Good evening. My name is Renee Hatcher. I'm a resident of Old Town Camarillo. I've lived there nearly 20 years. And I am here to talk about the noise from the airport. Yes, when I moved to Camarillo, I knew there was an airport nearby. They were a good neighbor. I never had issues until recent years with the increase in jet traffic. We're now seeing, as evidenced by the noise study, we are seeing incidents greater than 80 decibels and 90 decibels, depending on the size of the jet or turboprop plane that is coming overhead that is severely impacting our lifestyle. I'll say ditto on some of the comments that have already been made about interruptions to our normal life, just making dinner at home, having an evening at home, and being woken up at night. I also want to state, you have the JPA agreement specifically calls out that there's not to be single incident noise events greater than 90 decibels, and that is happening regularly. Their own noise study done by the county showed that the monitoring station near my home at the water tower had over 20 incidents greater than 90 decibels. Granted, some of those might have been a motorcycle or other noise going on, but it is showing and supporting what we're finding at home as well with our own noise monitoring equipment. Maybe not as sophisticated as what the consultants were using, but we're finding that as well. One thing I would ask you here is it is falling on the neighborhood and the community to make the complaints, to call to the noise center, come to you, write letters. I would say perhaps a way to get in front of that is to put up permanent noise monitoring equipment. And I know the airport in Burbank did that for a number of years. They had a kiosk in the center of their lobby, which reported noise activity set up at monitoring stations around the city. If you had something like that set up, it'd be easier for you to know and have records, and also to see in live time what is happening and what we as residents are experiencing. It would help you know it would help the community know, it would help the airport to know whether they're being a good neighbor. If we do have incidents that are exceeding 90, and it wouldn't fall on our shoulders to be complainers, to constantly be calling. I know I'm sick of calling, my neighbors are sick of calling, and I'm sure the airport staff is sick of hearing from us as well. That if there was some sort of monitoring system in place, you could know for yourselves what exactly is happening, and it would help the airport to be a better neighbor as well. As for marketing, I would say I don't believe the airport is actively marketing, but I have seen the information that's being put out by their new large hangars, Cloud9 and the others on site. They are putting out marketing material, advertising themselves, saying, come to us. Unlike Santa Monica, there aren't any complaints happening here because we're flying over cabbages and strawberries. So they are marketing to the Santa Monica airport people to come to Camarillo. Whether our airport is doing that or not, their FBOs are. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Our last speaker is Merrill Burry.
Good evening, Council. My name is Merrill Burgy. One of the things that I would recommend is you read the noise impact forecast document. And in there is where you will find that right now jets and turboprops make up 14% of the fleet mix, the itinerant and local fleet mix. And in 20 years, they're projected to make up 46%. And the real issue for you is you are caught in a cultural crosshairs. Private jets with the pandemic and fractionals have burgeoned. That's the demand that Mr. Freitas is talking about. And what with Van Nuys fighting and Santa Monica curtailing, are we the sacrifice zone? Are we the target for these corporate and celebrity jets? The next gen radar system, or it's not a radar system anymore, it's a GPS system, can increase the frequency of flights. So not only are we having larger planes, but they'll be able to come in on a more frequent basis. And these are the issues that you, as our city, need to address and represent us at the county level, at the state level. There's an Aviation Communities Impacted Alliance, Aviation Impacted Communities Alliance, that now has 70 communities, because this is what so many communities are facing. And it's really important to get in front of it, because the next grant you take is going to have the strings attached and a 20-year commitment. And where are we headed? So thank you very much for taking this seriously. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other public speakers with respect to this item? Yes, sir. Could you hand your speaker slip? And please approach.
Steve Newman, I'm in Camarillo here. I will say ditto to most of everything that's been said from the public here tonight. I will say that the experience of having a small plane fly over, you almost barely don't hear it. I spend a lot of time near Oxnard Airport, much closer to the end of the airport than I do to Camarillo's. Small plane goes over, you barely notice it. The motorcycle out on the street without the loud pipes is much quieter than what of these jets are that come in. And I've been in downtown, Old Town, where it's every minute and a half that a jet has come in over the weekend. And I've been in there overnight, in the evening time at some of the businesses downtown, and you hear them come in, and it definitely interrupts everybody's conversation. I want to say ditto to the comments regarding the fees. I think that's a reasonable way to approach it. If you charge the fees appropriate to the time they're coming in and restrict those hours, that's very common. Burbank doesn't let anybody take off before 7 o'clock, and they don't let anybody land unless it's an emergency. I've seen planes coming in at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're the loud jets. They're not Camarillo residents. They're Malibu, they're other folks. This is not somebody to tell me that this is Camarillo residents. Come on. That's not really something that I think is an appropriate, Anyways, I do want to say ditto to a lot of that stuff. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newman. Are there any other public speakers on this item? I want to thank all of the speakers who have commented tonight. Let me just close. Mr. Freitas, is there anything that you wish to respond to at this point? No? No other questions from council members or comments?
I do have just one question, Mayor.
Councilmember Martinez-Bravo.
So I know this is a receive and file just for the city, which I do get that part. And now that I'm no longer on Airport Authority, just as a recommendation, I think it would be wise to look into explore, because I don't know what it means, to explore the permanent noise monitoring system to see what that looks like, what that entails. You want to respond to that?
Thank you. Yes, I do want to respond. All of those ideas are part of the things we would look at in the Part 150 noise study.
Okay.
I heard the fees, I heard adjusting flight times and hours, all of those things just go into that laundry list of things we may or may not be able to do, but at least we will evaluate those and talk about those.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Khalid?
Fridas, I just have one other, not, you don't necessarily have to go up. I have more of a comment and a question. It could be phrased as a question, but we've heard a lot of input tonight, but obviously there may be other issues that we haven't heard of that. So if anything comes up in the future, will that also be addressed as well? I guess I shouldn't have asked you not to come up, sorry.
No, that is fine. Yes, that's the totality of this process. Is, you know, the bulk of the concerns we have right now are Old Town, but we have them in Spanish Hills. We have them in other areas around the airport. So those are the things we assess and see if we can mitigate those specific issues.
So you're still up for more dialogue as far as whatever issues may
100%.
be?
We're about halfway through the noise study process in 2024. We have public meetings slated, 3 of them, through 2024, where we give information, we hear feedback, ideas. Again, it's our community members, it's our pilots, our businesses, all coming together with solutions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That will conclude our, thank you, Mr. Freitas, and to all of our speakers. That will conclude this item AD. It's now 6:30. Pursuant to what I said before, we're going to recess for 10 minutes. We're then going to come back with the 6 p.m. calendar. We'll take first public comments, and then we will go through items A, E, AF, and AG respectively. So we're in recess for 10 minutes. With our 6 o'clock calendar, first up will be any public comments for items that are not, general public comments for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
No, we do not.
All right, is there anyone in chambers who wishes to provide public comments to the City Council? All right, hearing none, we're then going to go directly to item AE, proposed ordinance amendment to the Camarillo Municipal Code relative to oversized vehicles. Let's see, we are going to hear from Mr. Klotzel regarding that item.
Yes.
Mr. Klotzel.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. This item is to consider an ordinance to amend Camarillo Municipal Code, Section 11.20.220, regarding oversized vehicle parking restrictions. This code section has been in place for over 20 years to address adverse impacts from the parking of large vehicles, including trucks, trailers, RVs, and other commercial vehicles in residential and business areas. The code currently prohibits daytime parking of such vehicles between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to address traffic safety concerns from reduced driver visibility at driveways and the general degradation of streets and sidewalks from trash and waste and other discharges. The code provides for issuance of a permit for short-term daytime parking of oversized vehicles when warranted. In 2008, Ordinance 1030 amended the code section to include newly developed residential areas and several business areas with an updated map as shown as Exhibit A to the current ordinance. To address additional development that's occurred since 2008, and continuing concerns from businesses in the Poncho Road, Dawson Drive, and Verdolera Street areas, staff recommends the proposed ordinance amending the Municipal Code Section 11.20.220 to include these additional areas in the parking restrictions and modify the restricted times to between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. for the shaded areas on the updated Exhibit A map as shown. That concludes my report, and I'm available for questions.
All right, do council members have any questions for Mr. Klotzel? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Klotzel. So if in fact, if this does get implemented here, when will this be put in place?
The adoption of an ordinance becomes effective immediately and to be shown in the municipal code. And then there will be some additional signage that will be required. We're actually going to update all the signs that are out there currently. And then with a extensive community outreach information campaign and to alert as many as possible of the updated and the new areas added. And then any violations of the restrictions would receive a warning first from an educational standpoint before a citation is issued for that.
So without having the signs, we can enforce the ordinance first, or do we have to have the signs up simultaneously?
The signs need to be in place.
Sign needs to be in place first?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And
So-
that could take, what the turnaround time is on this?
That'll take several weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
To just clarify, I think you said the ordinance would go into effect immediately, but this ordinances have an introduction and will come back for adoption, and then it'll go into effect 30 days after.
That's an attorney question, that's why.
Right.
Sorry, no, that's all right.
No, that'll be a second reading, yeah.
Thank you.
First
Right,
reading,
sorry,
second reading
okay,
item.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Hearing no other questions from council members, are there any members of the public who wish to comment to the council on this? All right, hearing none, let's bring it back to council. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the suggested action.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that motion is approved on a 5-0 vote. Let's move then to item AF, North Pleasant Valley Groundwater Desalter Detention Basin Improvements.
Yes, thank you again.
Up again, Mr. Clausen.
Mayor and City
You're up to the
Council.
plate.
Yes, yes. This item is to ratify a construction contract and an agreement for construction management services that have been issued for the retrofit of the stormwater detention basin at the DeSalter site. So we've got a picture, aerial picture of the DeSalter site looking to the south, and the basin, which is on the upper right corner in the picture, is part of the original 5-acre DeSalter site design. The basin is required to provide compliance with regulatory permit requirements for stormwater runoff from the site. The basin is not a part of the actual drinking water treatment process that's in place, and that continues to deliver 4 million gallons of high-quality water per day. The original regulatory compliant design was for the basin to collect water runoff from the entire site and allow it to percolate into the ground, with only really high storm flows that would, depending on if there was enough water to fill the basin and overflow into the storm drain system. Again, that design all in compliance with stormwater requirements. It turns out that the underground geology is such that there's a clay layer that prevents the collected water from soaking into the ground quickly enough, which then, as shown in the picture, can fill the basin up, and then any additional flows overflow into the storm drain, which is not in compliance with a stormwater permit. So we're under a permit compliance situation that needs to be rectified. The basin must be retrofitted as soon as possible, and the approach is to include a modular stormwater filter system within the basin area, which will comply with the permit requirements. Due to the long lead time to obtain the modular filter system and the need to comply with the permit as soon as possible, in October, staff executed a construction contract with Sam Hill & Sons and a construction management agreement with Philippine Engineering for the basin retrofit project. The filter system is on order, and being a long lead time item, it's expected to be delivered in late January and then installed as soon after it's received, along with some other appurtenances and piping, with the full installation to achieve compliance with the stormwater permit requirements. So that's the project at hand, and the action tonight is to ratify that contract and professional services agreement for construction management. I did want to take this opportunity to provide council a brief status update on the entire DeSalter project. As we're well aware and have seen out there, we are continuing to deliver high-quality treated drinking water at 4 million gallons per day. The plant is successful and has been continuously operational. We're in the final contract closeout phase with our contract with WM Lyles. A lot of details to finish up, but we're really close to the end, including receipt of all the equipment manuals. You can imagine all the parts and equipment out there, all the warranties for that. Those items are in place. We'll be moving forward with final payment and notice of completion in the near future. That'll come to City Council. So we're really focused on wrapping up the contract there. And there are several items of additional work going forward. This basin retrofit being one, again, not directly related to the ability for the plant to continue to produce and treat the drinking water. A couple other items that are in process, and is actually during the review and moving through the permitting process with the Division of Drinking Water, the state permitting process. To accomplish that, of course, we did get the permit to operate and deliver water. One of the items that was brought up is one of the processes is what we call it's the backwash water recovery system. If any of you remember being out on the site and walked up the highest point of some stairs and we're looking down at a big rectangular thing that the water comes up and then goes back through to recover some of the water that's used in the backwash of the pressure filters. I mean, way too much technical information already. Anyway, the way that was originally designed was open to the air, that piece of equipment, and the permitting agency, Division Drinking Water, has determined that really needs to be covered, basically to prevent any foreign materials, especially anything that's going to harm the quality of the water, bird droppings, for instance. That needs to be covered, and they've allowed us to continue forward, and operate the plant with a plan to cover that. So we've got a design in place. There will be a separate construction item to put that in place and to construct that. So some follow-up items, again, not affecting the continued treatment and delivery of water, but that will be another item of work that's coming up. We're also in the initial stages, as was long planned, to have a third well, a third supply well. Right now, there are 2 wells, A and B, supply the water for the desalter. The plan is all along to have a third well. So we're proceeding with initial design on that. Likely will be located right at the site of the desalter, but that's another effort that's going to be ongoing with additional effort and cost coming forward. So just wanted to mention those few items that are still to come on the desalter site, but the construction and operation of the facility is complete and fully operational. So I just wanted to give an update on those items, and concludes my report, and available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Klotzel. Do any members of the council have any questions for Mr. Klotzel? Councilmember Tennyson, followed by Vice Mayor Kildee.
Just real quick, the detention basin will still be part of the project. So the retrofit is actually at the site of the detention basin. It's not going to be done away with.
That's correct.
Okay, that was it.
Vice Mayor Kildee.
Yeah, more of a comment, Mr. Kossel. I mean, my tenure, I think this contract with Lyles was one of the largest, if not the largest, the city has ever undertook. And I have to say, I think from my perspective, things went relatively smoothly here. I believe they were, for the most part, on target, followed the budget here, had relatively few issues. I mean, you have to expect issues on a magnitude of this, this endeavor, if you will. But from my perspective, I think I'd like for you to pass on to the staff, if you will, that I think they did a great job. I know there were several years that we all worked on this here, and I thought it went smoother than what I thought it would. So if you could pass that on, if you have any other comments you'd like to make, I think it would be appropriate to hear those, if you have any.
Okay, no, I would agree with you. For the project of this complexity and size, it did overall go very well. There were some challenges that, delayed the actual delivery of water past the point where we were hoping that would occur. But we achieved that, and we have a first-class facility out there producing really high-quality water. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Councilmember Martinez-Bravo.
David, thank you very much for the update, in addition to touching on the item on the agenda. I think that was very helpful, and I really appreciate Councilmember Kildee's comment in terms of, I know you've been here the longest, Kevin, and it's really helpful to see that perspective as well. I do support moving forward with what staff's recommendations are. This is a very important aspect of it, and I know it is more of an emergency, and I'd like to move forward with it.
I think I'm hearing a motion as to all 5 of the staff recommendations?
Yes.
All right, that'll be a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Councilmember Tennyson. Time to vote. And that's adopted on a 5-0 vote. All right. Councilmember Martinez-Bravo, I thought I heard you saying a motion. That's why I jumped.
Yes, that is fine.
Okay. All right, we're going to go to our last discussion item of the evening. This will be item AG, and it is the triennial review of referral for Nui Camarillo LLC. Ms. Lee?
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Tremblay, Vice Mayor Kildee, and council members. I'd like to start with providing a short recap of this item. On September 27th, 2017, the City Council ordered further processing of the referral application submitted by Nui Camarillo LLC. The referral contemplates redesignating 31 acres from the current quasi-public designation to low-medium density residential over a portion of the existing Camarillo Springs Golf Course. And this is a map that shows the area. The Camarillo Springs Golf Course is located south of Ridgeview Street at Ador Lane and east and west of Camarillo Springs Road. In accordance with the City Council Policy 7.01E, every 3 years after the date on which a referral application was ordered for further study, the City Council will take action to either continue the study of the referral or rescind the referral. On October 25th of 2023, the council held a triennial review and received presentations from staff and the applicant and received public comments. The item was recessed until November 8th, 2023. On November 8th, 2023, additional public comments were received. The City Council deliberated and directed staff to return with a resolution to rescind the general plan amendment referral for consideration at tonight's meeting. A resolution rescinding the referral has been prepared for the City Council's consideration, which finds that the general plan amendment referral for Nui Camarillo LLC is not in the best interest and welfare of the city and its residents because it would result in the loss of open space and recreational acreage, which is a limited and valuable resource that must be conserved wherever possible. Open space provides important benefits to the community and has a positive effect on overall mental health and well-being. It would allow for residential development in an area designated a very high fire hazard severity zone by CAL FIRE that will place further or future development and people at risk. Increasing the number of residents on the site of the referral is a public safety issue that will cause increased difficulty in evacuating the Camarillo Springs area in the event of a wildfire. Also, this site was never considered nor identified in the 2021-2029 certified housing element and is not needed to satisfy the city's regional housing needs allocation. Further, it would allow for additional residential development that would substantially affect the views of the golf course from surrounding mobile homes. The studies conducted in the CEQA documents as it relates to the master drainage plan and floodplain analysis submitted by the applicant still raises safety concerns, as was described by the city's third-party consultant, the CEQA documents, and from Public Works staff. Also, it is inconsistent with numerous general plan policies, including those in the land use element, open space and conservation element, safety element, recreation element, and community design element, as further described in the resolution. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council find that the triennial review of the referral for Nui Camarillo LLC is exempt from review under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Guidelines 15061B3, and to adopt a resolution rescinding the referral for Nui Camarillo LLC as provided for under City Council Policy 7.01.E. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Do any council members have any questions for Ms. Lee?
I don't have questions other than a comment.
Hearing no questions, let me just say, is there anyone in the audience this evening who wishes to offer a public comment? I haven't received any speaker cards. I don't see anyone who wants to come forward and offer a public comment. So let me now bring it back to, on this item, so let me bring it back to council and Councilmember Martinez-Bravo.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for summarizing what I believe we discussed at that meeting. I did read the resolution, and I think it's pretty much in line to as to what we said, and so I agree to move to adopt the resolution to rescind the referral for Nui Camarillo LLC as provided under City Council Policy 7.01E.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Before we go to vote on this, are there any other comments by any other members of the council? I just have a short comment, and I've reviewed and I agree with the proposed resolution and the my comments and my position regarding the rescission of this referral that I made on November 8, 2023, I'm going to incorporate by reference fully into tonight's record. With that, we'll call for the question, and please vote. And that motion is adopted on a 5-0 vote. All right, that brings us to closed session report. Ms. Richmond?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. There was no reportable action taken in closed session. Thank you.
All right, I'll note before we adjourn that the next regular meeting of the City Council is on January 10 of next year. I wish everyone a very happy and a safe holiday season and a happy new year and a safe new year. I want to adjourn our council meeting this evening in memory of Dr. Ken Anderson, and appreciate Vice Mayor bringing that forward. Thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.